Hey everybody, it's Brennan. Happy New Year. In this video I'm going to be building a snare drum. And what makes this experiment extraordinary, in my opinion, is that I'm building a snare drum out of PVC pipe. And I have not seen this happen really much at all. So I was wanting to do a more in-depth video with much more detail as to how I make it. And the main part of this experiment is I want to see what I can do with what little tools I have. But with that being said, hope you enjoy. Alright, got my lines cutted all the way around. Alright, so at this stage I'm hand filing the edges on both sides of the shell to get it as level as possible. Mainly because of the cut with the handsaw that I did wasn't entirely accurate and kind of slanted on some parts. I've seen other drum makers usually do this whole leveling process by pushing and turning on the shell on a table with this large sheet of sandpaper that covers the whole canvas of the edge. I hope I'm describing that properly. I've tried looking for these large pieces of sandpaper that are about the size of posters that you'd hang on a wall, but I can't find them anywhere. Maybe I'm not putting in the right name for it, and maybe it's not just simply called large sandpaper. If this seems silly to say, then I'm sorry. I'm still fairly a noob at this, since this is my first drum build from scratch. So if anybody knows the name of this, just put the name in the description. I'm sure it would make my life a hell of a lot easier. Now for hand filing the snare bed in. I know this is usually done by hand. Next in the process was making the bearing edges. And for the sake of this prototype snare, and as an experiment mainly, I'm also filing these by hand. I know this could have been done a lot easier, more accurately around the shell, and a lot quicker if I would have just bought a router and routing table. But I kind of wanted to see what I could do on my own, and I wasn't really looking forward to spending the money on a good router and a table. So here I am for a little while, filing the first bearing edge, trying to get a good technique down, figuring out how the best way to do it, and potentially giving myself arthritis and or carpal tunnel. Maybe both. This process really made my wrist sore, to say the least. Now that all the filing is done, for now, the next step in the process was drilling the holes for the lugs, the snare throw-off, and the butt plate. And again, as you see, you probably could have guessed it, I am also doing this by hand. Maybe if I save up, along with a router and a table, I most likely will get a small drill press to make the build process a hell of a lot easier. But, for now, you gotta start somewhere. So here, I'm making the marks for the holes that I'm about to drill, and then I actually start drilling them. My camera ran out of room to record shortly after I started drilling. Alright, now that all the holes are drilled, it's finally time to actually start assembling the drum together. Some lugs had to be hammered in to fit, so some of them fit really tightly, which is probably due to me slightly being off with my drill marks. But I kind of see it as a helpful error. Fuck! Helpful error. That probably doesn't make sense, but I see it as a good thing because a tight fit means that it helps secure the lugs and keep them from moving around loosely. The final step, drum heads and tuning. I'm using Evans for the drum heads. I use Remo and Aquarian occasionally, but by far Evans are my favorite to use on snares. For the batter head, I'm using an HD Dry, and I'm using their standard snare side head on the bottom. I tune the heads as tight as possible without potentially breaking the lugs, mainly because the lugs came from Taiwan at a company I hadn't heard of, so I wasn't entirely sure what to expect with the quality. But when all was said and done, after playing the snare a few times, I was really impressed by them. Alright, so here's the finished product. It's a 14 by 6.5 inch snare. Got chrome tube lugs with brass tension rods. For the batter side drum hoop, I got a blue hoop. And for the snare side, I just got a normal chrome hoop. Nothing special. This snare throw off was from Drum Factory Direct. That was about 13 bucks. The butt plate was about 5 bucks and some change. The snare wire that I'm using is a 42 strand. I know, it's pretty ridiculous, but the bigger the better for drums, I always say. Overall, I really love the sound of it. I'm pleasantly surprised, considering that this is the first drum I've ever made. how good it sounds. I'll definitely be making more, and this honestly makes me want to start making drums for more people than other than myself. So with that being said, if you or anybody else wants a custom-made snare, feel free to email me. My email is in the description. It's brdane@gmail.com. I'll be able to send you over a quota, and the snare can be whatever you want it to be. It can be whatever depth, it can be whatever colors you want, whatever design you want, if you want a drum wrap, anything. It's a really fun learning experience, to say the least, building a drum. And I'll definitely be doing more drum covers with this snare as well, because this is totally my favorite snare. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stick around for more stuff, including this snare and several other snares that I make. Thank you.